Hi everybody, this is Lisa, and time again for another Verbling class. In this hour, we are going to be doing some reading. I chose an article once again from Wired.com, and that is a website that belongs to a magazine. It's also a magazine that's printed here in the United States. And it has articles that are usually about technology, science, business. They're not usually very easy articles to read, but I noticed that I have a lot of Verbling students who are very interested in challenging themselves. So even though the article might be a little difficult, I can explain words and you can ask questions so we can get through the article. And like Tan says, I do think it's an interesting topic. So as long as you're interested in something, then it's worthwhile to work through it, even if it might have some difficult vocabulary words. So yeah, if you have a reservation, you can go ahead and get it now. Hi there, Maxime. And if you do not have a reservation, you can get one now, or you can wait until you see the green Join Class button and then click on that. I'm going to put the link to the document up there in the Verbling chat. Okay, great. Maxime, how are you doing?
Hello, I'm fine.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Where are you living?
I'm from Russia. I'm living in Sochi city.
Okay, great. And are you enjoying spring weather?
Yeah, spring weather, very warm.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good, good. Did you have
By the way, where are you from?
I am from Washington State in the United
great.
States. Yeah.
Great, great.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you ever been to the United States?
No, but I want to visit.
Great. Okay, welcome everybody. Come on in. Everybody's clicking on the green Join Class button. As you enter, you can also click on the link that I provided in the Verbling Hangout. And as soon as we have everybody in here, then I will just say hi to everybody and make sure that your microphone is working. And then we will get started. It's actually a pretty long article, so I'm hoping that we can get through it. If we can't, then if you're still interested in reading, you can finish reading on your own. It's a pretty interesting article. It's actually an interview, so it'll be like questions and then the guy answering the questions. Okay, so let's say hi to everybody. Ekram, how are you doing? Hi, Ekram.
Hi, teacher. It's my first class with you.
Okay, well, wonderful. Welcome. And I will explain how it works. First, we're just going to say hi to everybody and make sure that their microphones are working, because everybody is going to be reading out loud. So we have to make sure our microphones are working. Okay, Enrique, how are you today?
Hi, Lisa. I am fine. Thank you for asking.
Okay, wonderful. Yes, I'm doing well. Thank you. I'm also probably going to ask you guys to mute your microphones when you're not talking, just because of background noise. So, oops. Okay, there we go. Okay, Farhad, how are you?
Hi, teacher. I'm doing well. What about you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Glad you joined us.
You're welcome.
Ekram, I'm gonna mute you just because I hear some noise in the background. And Eron, welcome.
Thank you, Lisa. Once again, I'm here.
Yes, once again. All right, awesome. We have to move around a little bit. We've been sitting for a while.
Yes.
Okay. Jose, how are you doing? Jose Ramon. Yeah, it's probably muted because I don't hear you. Oops, he dropped. Probably his connection. Hi, Kadir. How are you? All right. And where are you joining us from?
I'm from Turkey.
From Turkey. Okay, wonderful. And Maria, you joined us. Hi there, Maria.
Hi. Nice to see you. I missed your writing class this morning.
Oh, yeah.
I was so tired.
Oh, I'm sure you were because it was very early for you. But
I set the alarm, but I didn't get up on time. I was just so tired.
Yeah, I was surprised because I actually had a few people from. Well, Conrad was in London, and it was like 5 a.m. for him. And yeah,
from the same time zone, or neighboring time zone.
Neighboring, yeah, Nihan, and yeah. So a couple of people were up early because usually at that time I have most people from South America or Mexico, so it's not so late. Okay, wonderful. And Maxime's here joining us, and Tan. Hey there, Tan. You want to read today? No. You're a jokester, you know that. Okay. All right, well, I think we have room for one more person. So I noticed some people have come in and gone out, so maybe you're having problems with your internet connection. But if you see the green join class button, then David is going to join us. Okay, great. So let's go to the reading so we can get started because, like I said, it is a pretty long article. It was actually 2 pages on the internet. So that equals many pages when I put it into the Google Doc and I make it bigger so that people who are just watching the screen can also read along and see it. So hi David, how are you? Hi there. You just make sure that your microphone is ready to go when we're ready to read. So the way we're going to do this is I will read, I will highlight what I'm reading, and then I will read it, and then I will ask one of you, we'll take turns to read. So you're actually going to be reading the same thing that I just read. The reason why I am reading first is just so that everybody hears a native person pronouncing the words, so that you hear how you can learn to pronounce those words. If you have any questions, like you want me to repeat something or you want me to explain what one of the words means or a phrase or something, go ahead and turn on your microphone and just ask. You could also ask in the Verbling chat, but sometimes I can't keep an eye on it. So yeah, here we go. Oh yeah, Tan, you noticed that too, huh? They have the anonymous crow, the anonymous chameleon, anonymous dolphin. Instead of just the colors, they've now put little icons for you guys. So we have 19 total viewers watching this or opening this Google document. So let's start reading. It's called Consciousness After Death, Strange Tales from the Frontiers of Resuscitation Medicine. Okay, right there in the title, there's a lot of words. Okay, so let me explain what we're talking about. Consciousness, yeah, consciousness is talking about something beyond just your brain or your mind, but the idea that you still have awareness even after your body is dead. So some people believe that, some people don't believe that. So this is what this is talking about. Strange tales, strange, weird, or exciting, or something different. Frontiers of resuscitation medicine. So when you're on the frontier of something, it's the newest stuff happening. They're just making discoveries all the time. And resuscitation, you probably heard of that, is sometimes, CPR is what it
Yeah, cardiopulmonary resuscitation.
Right, exactly. So that's like bringing somebody back to life, kind of. You resuscitate them, like maybe they've stopped breathing or maybe their heart has stopped beating, and you do some techniques to get them to start breathing again or to start their heart beating again. Okay, so that's what this is about here. All right, I'm going to start. Sam Parnia practices resuscitation medicine. In other words, he helps bring people back from the dead, and some return with stories. Their tales could help save lives and even challenge traditional scientific ideas about the nature of consciousness. Okay, David, you want to read the first one?
Hello.
Hello. Do you,
Some partner practice resuscitation medicine. In other words, he helps bring people back from, and some return with stories that tales could help save lives, and even challenge traditional
scientific, yeah.
consciências.
Yeah, I think your microphone was cutting out a little bit. Okay, scientific ideas, yeah, about
ideas.
The nature of consciousness. So whenever you're talking about the nature of something, that means like what it's like. So the nature of
consciousness.
Yeah, it's actually consciousness. Consciousness, yeah. So the nature of human beings would be like, what are human beings like? The nature of consciousness is to try to understand what is consciousness? What is it like? What are we talking about? Okay? The evidence we have so far is that human consciousness does not become annihilated, said Parnia, a doctor at Stony Brook University Hospital and director of the school's resuscitation research program. It continues for a few hours after death, albeit in a hibernated state we cannot see from the outside. Okay, Ekram?
Okay. The evidence we have so far is that human consciousness does not become annihilated. Said Parnia, a doctor at Stony Brook University Hospital and director of the school's resuscitation
Resuscitation.
Resuscitations. Research program. It continues for a few hours after that, albeit in a hibernated state we cannot see from the outside.
Right. So basic, Enrique?
A question about the albeit I could use although.
About where?
Instead of albeit, I could use although.
Yeah. Yeah, instead of ideas, is that what you're saying?
Yes, is if I could use although instead of albeit.
Albeit. Oh, instead of albeit. Yeah. Here, let me get to that. Just let me start up here, and then I'll get to that. Hold on. So first I want to just explain. So this word annihilated, it means that it doesn't go away. If you annihilate something, you like kill it or you get rid of it. So they're saying that it's not gotten rid of. And it continues for a few hours after death, albeit. So albeit means like even though it is in a hibernated state. Does that make sense, Enrique? Albeit. If you can say
it's not the same that although.
Although, yes.
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 Okay, so that. I could use it there.
Although, yes,
okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, and a hibernate. You know that bears hibernate, so that means like it's in a state of like sleeping. Yeah, hibernated. And we cannot see what's happening from the outside. So when somebody stops breathing or their heart stops, that's cardiac arrest, something is going on inside of them, but we don't know it. We can't really see it. Okay, that's what he's saying. All right, this word, it's easier if you take longer words and you break them up. So I would break it up like this. Resuscitation. The T-I-O-N has the shun sound. So resuscitation medicine grew out. Yes, right, exactly. Resuscitation medicine grew out of the mid-20th century discovery of CPR, the medical procedure by which hearts that have stopped beating are revived. Okay, dear, I'm gonna mute you there. You guys, I hear a lot of noise in the background, so if you can mute your microphone. Originally effective for only a few minutes after cardiac arrest, advances in CPR have pushed that time to a half hour or more. So, Marie.
Your voice goes in and out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, at least for me. Do you guys hear her voice all the time?
that was happening too when I was listening too. Oh, it's going in and out when I'm typing. That's what happened.
Really?
Yeah, because it's muting me now when I type. So when I was typing,
maybe you should turn off the webcam for temporarily. I mean,
for who?
If it helps.
Oh.
Sometimes it helps because it takes bandwidth.
Yeah, but then then people won't be able to see what I'm writing. I mean, what I'm reading. Yeah.
Yeah, that's bad.
Okay, I'll try not to write so much. All right. Resuscitation medicine grew out of the mid-20th century discovery of CPR. So like you said, Maria, that stands for cardiopulmonary resuscitation. All right. So let's see. Who's next? Okay, Farhad, do you want to read that?
Okay. Resuscitation medicine grew out of the mid-20th century discovery of CPR, the medical procedure by which hearts that has stopped beating are revived. Originally effective for a few minutes after a cardiac arrest, advance in a CPR have pushed that time to a half hour or more.
Yeah. So because of these advances, now people can be basically their heart can be stopped, or they can stop breathing for up to a half an hour, and then they can bring them back.
So arrest means stop.
Exactly. Yes. Mm-hmm.
And teacher, what about the revive? What does it mean?
It means to bring back to life. So your heart has stopped beating, and they bring it back to beating. So they make it beat again. That's called to revive you. Yeah. Yep. Okay. New techniques promise to even further extend the boundary between life and death. At the same time, experiences reported by resuscitated people sometimes defy what's thought to be possible. They claim to have seen and heard things, though activity in their brains appears to have stopped. Okay, Aaron?
New techniques promise to even further extend the boundary between life and death. At the same time, experiences reported by resuscitated people sometimes defy what's thought to be possible. They claim to have seen and heard things, thought activity in their brains appears to have stopped.
Yep.
Stopped it.
Stopped. Yeah.
Stopped.
Yeah. So basically, what they're saying is now we're not really sure when does life really end and when does death start, I guess, because they're able to bring you back. So maybe you felt like you were dead, or maybe you really were dead, but then you're coming back. So this is what it means to defy. When you defy something, it means you go against it. So now they're defying what we think is possible. They're doing new things. And so lots of times these people tell us that even though there was no activity in their brains, like, on the machines, then there was stuff going on because they tell the stories. So that's what we're going to hear about now. It sounds supernatural, and if their memories are accurate and their brains really have stopped, it's neurologically inexplicable, at least with what's now known. Parnia, leader of the Human Consciousness Project's AWARE study, which documents after-death experiences in 25 hospitals across North America and Europe, is studying this phenomenon scientifically. Okay. All right. So, Maria, how about you read that?
Okay, it sounds supernatural, and if their memories are accurate and their brains really have stopped, it's neurologically inexplicable, at least with what's now known. Parnia, the leader of the Human Consciousness Project's AWARE study, which documents after-death experiences in 25 hospitals across North America and Europe, is studying the phenomenon scientifically.
Mm-hmm. So a couple of words here. Neurologically, that means it has to do with your neurological system. Neuro. Yeah.
4 syllables, right?
Yeah.
Neuro. It's 5. Okay.
Yep, neurologically. Yep. And inexplicable means unexplainable. You cannot explain it through neurologic because, like, when you look at the machines, your brain is not having any electricity. So there's no nothing going on in your brain. But people come back and they tell us stories. And so this is what this guy has been studying. So Parnia discusses his work in the new book, Erasing Death, the Science that is Rewriting the Boundaries Between Life and Death. Wired talked to Parnia about resuscitation and the nature of consciousness. Okay, Mario, you want to read that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so Parnia discusses his work in the new book, Erasing Death, the Science that is Rewriting the Boundaries Between Life and Death. Wired talked to Parnia about resuscitation and the nature of consciousness.
Yes. Okay. What, does anybody, let's see, I think everybody knows that. So here we go with the interview. So Wired asks the question, in the book you say that death is not a moment in time but a process. What do you mean by that? And he says, there's a point used to define death. Your heart stops beating, your brain shuts down. The moment of cardiac arrest. Until 50 years ago when CPR was developed, when you reached this point, you couldn't come back. That led to the perception that death is completely irreversible. Okay. Tan, why don't you go ahead and read both the question there and the answer.
Okay. In the book, you say that death is not a moment in time but a process. What do you mean by that? There's a point used to define death. Your heart stops beating, your brain shuts down, the moment of cardiac arrest. Until 50 years ago when CPR was developed, when you reached this point, you couldn't come back. That led to the perception that death is completely irreversible.
Yeah, irreversible.
Irreversible.
Exactly. Yeah, and what that means is that it changes. So when something is irreversible, it means that's it. You can't make it happen. You can't go back the way it was. But what they're saying is because now, because of CPR, you can. You can actually come back to life, even though they defined death by all those things, the heart stopping and stopping breathing. That can happen to you for a little while, but with these techniques, you can actually start breathing again, and your heart will start beating, which means now, again, you're alive. So it's kind of a definition thing, too, how you define what death is. But if I were to die this instant, the cells inside my body wouldn't have died yet. It takes time for cells to die after they're deprived of oxygen. It doesn't happen instantly. We have a longer period of time than people perceive. We know now that when you become a corpse, when the doctor declares you dead, there's still a possibility from a biological and medical perspective of death being reversed. Okay, so David?
Hello. But if I were the died this instant. The cell inside my body wouldn't have died yet. It takes time for cells to die after they're deprived of oxygen.
Oxygen.
Oxygen. It doesn't happen instantly.
Instantly, yep.
We have people perceive. We know now that when you become a corpse, when that doctor declares you that there is still a possibility from a biological and medical perspective of death being reversed.
Reversed. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Reversed.
Yeah. So basically, he's saying, you know, your heart might stop. That's what cardiac arrest is, and you might stop breathing. But you have your whole body full of all your cells, and it takes them a little to die, even if you aren't breathing anymore, which means you're being deprived of oxygen. You're not getting any more oxygen. Your cells are not getting oxygen. So it doesn't just happen like so quickly. It takes a little while for your body to become a corpse, which means it's really dead. And so from a biological, that means based on the biology of a human being, and from a medical perspective, meaning what you know, what medicine can do, what doctors can do, it can be changed. It can be reversed. Okay.
It's gross to read about that, isn't it?
Well, it depends. Maybe you're glad that can happen. Of course, if someone dies and you leave them alone long enough, the cells become damaged. There's going to be a time when you can't bring them back. But nobody knows exactly when that moment is. It might not just be in tens of minutes, but in over an hour. Death is really a process. Okay. Emmanuel.
Okay. Of course, if someone dies and you leave them alone long enough, the cell becomes damaged. There is going to be a time when you can't bring them back. But nobody knows exactly when that moment is. It might not just be in tens of minutes, but in over an hour. That is really a process.
Mm-hmm. Right. So basically, they're just saying, you know, there might be a time period, maybe even up to 1 hour or more, where your body might start dying, but you can actually come back to life. So the question is, how can people be brought back from death? Death is essentially the same as a stroke, and that's especially true for the brain. A stroke is some process that stops blood flow from getting into the brain. Whether it's because the heart stopped pumping or there was a clot that stopped blood flow, the cells don't care. Okay, Enrique?
Okay. How can people be brought back from death? Death is essentially the same as a stroke, and that's especially true for the brain. A stroke is some process that stops blood flow from getting into the brain, whether it's because the heart stopped pumping or there was a clot that stopped blood flow. The cells don't care.
Right. So a clot is like a little ball of blood that makes it impossible, I guess, or hard for the blood to pass through it. So it can happen in one of your veins or capillaries or something like that. And so that sometimes causes a stroke, which affects your brain. Brain cells can be viable for up to 8 hours after blood flow stops. If doctors can learn to manipulate processes going on in cells and slow down the rate at which cells die, we could go back and fix the problem that caused a person to die, then restart the heart and bring them back. In a sense, death could become reversible for conditions for which treatments become available. Okay. All right, let's see. Farhad?
Okay, so brain cells can be viable for up to 8 hours after blood flow stops. If doctors can learn to manipulate process going on in cells and slow down the rate at which cells die, we could go back and fix the problems that caused a person to die, then restart the heart and bring them back. In a sense, death could become reversible for conditions for which treatments become available.
Yes. So what they're talking about here is brain cells can be viable. The word viable means they can still for up to 8 hours. So even if you have blood flow stopping, so the brain is not getting any more blood, they'll still be alive and still be able to work for up to 8 hours. So basically what they're saying is if you have some kind of disease or something that maybe could cause you to die, but they have found a treatment for it to help you fix that, they could actually just let your heart stop or even block it, stop it from beating, do the surgery or whatever they need to do to treat the problem, and then start your blood back to flowing to the brain, and you'll be able to be saved, I guess. So they actually do that already. They can already stop your heart for a while, do some stuff, and then start it up again. If someone dies of a heart attack, for example, and it can be fixed, then in principle we can protect the brain, make sure it doesn't experience permanent cellular death, and restart the heart. If someone dies of cancer, though, and that particular cancer is untreatable, then it's futile. Okay. Eron?
If someone dies of heart attack, for example, and it can be fixed, then in principle we can protect the brain, make sure it doesn't experience permanent cellular death, and restart the heart. If someone dies of cancer, and that particular cancer is untreatable, then it's futile.
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 Yeah, there you go. Futile, yes.
Futile.
Then they can go and play football.
Yeah.
It's a new word for me.
Yeah. Okay, good. All right, so yeah, so basically a heart attack, a lot of times if you get to that person soon enough, then you can fix the heart. Maybe they just had a blockage or something, and you can, through a surgery, clear that out. So, but the main thing is you want to protect the brain. That's why it's important. The timing is really important, because you don't want to have the cells start to die. But if you have somebody's dying of cancer and you can't really treat that yet, if they don't know how to treat that particular type of cancer, then it's futile, which means even if they brought you back to life, it's not going to help you because you're still dying of the problem that they can't treat. So futile means it's hopeless, basically. Yeah, like it's not going to work. So hopeless. All right, Wired, are you talking about bringing people to life days or weeks or even years after they've died? No, this is not cryogenics. When you die, most of your cell death occurs through apoptosis. That's our scientific term, apoptosis, or programmed cell death. That's what it means. If your body is cold, the chemical reactions underlying apoptosis are slower. Making the body cold slows the rate at which cells decay. But we're talking about chilling, not freezing. The process of freezing will damage cells. Okay. Let's see. Manuel, you want to read?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So,
you see it right there?
Where do I start?
This one right here. Are you talking about bringing people to life right there? Yeah.
Okay. Are you talking about bringing people to life survive days or weeks or even years. No, this is not cryogenics. When you die, most of your self-death occurs through apoptosis, or programmed cell death. If your body is cold, the chemical reactions underlying apoptosis are slower. Making the body cold slows the rate at which cells decay. But we're talking about chilling, not freezing. The process of freezing will damage cells.
Right. So some of you have probably heard of cryogenics. It's kind of like Michael Jackson was into it or something. I don't know, but that's where people who pay money and they die, and once they die, they put them in some freezing chamber or something, and they're hoping that sometime in the future they can bring them back to life. But that's not what he's talking about. All right. Manuel, do you have the Verbling window open? What?
Apoptosis?
Yeah. Okay, they gave us the definition right here. It's programmed cell death. Once your cells start dying, then it's already programmed that they're going to continue to die. That's the term apoptosis right there. That's what that means. So it's just a part of a natural death process. Yeah, what happens to your cells. Okay, Wired. You also study near-death experiences, but you have a different term for it, after-death experience. Parnia says, I decided that we should study what people have experienced when they've gone beyond cardiac arrest. I found that 10% of patients who survived cardiac arrest report these incredible accounts of seeing things. Okay, Maria.
Okay. Yeah, I'm here. Let me see. I'm not sure where we are. You also study. Okay. Yeah. You also study near-death experiences, but you have a different term for it. After-death experience. Mm-hmm. I decided that we should study what people have experienced when they have gone beyond cardiac arrest. I found that 10% of patients who survived cardiac arrests report these incredible accounts of seeing things.
Mm-hmm. So some people call them near-death experiences because they didn't really die, like they actually came back. But he's calling them after death because he's using a definition of death as cardiac arrest, for example. Okay, so he says we should study these people because they come back with reports or accounts, stories. They come back with stories of seeing things, incredible stories actually. So incredible means like fantastic or amazing or wonderful. So let's see what they say. When I looked at the cardiac arrest literature, it became clear that it's after the heart stops and blood flow into the brain ceases. There's no blood flow into the brain, no activity, about 10 seconds after the heart stops. When doctors start to do CPR, they still can't get enough blood into the brain. It remains flatlined. That's the physiology of people who've died or are receiving CPR. Okay, Mario?
Yep.
Okay, read that.
When I looked at the cardiac arrest literature, it became clear that it's after the heart stops and blood flow into the brain ceases. There's no blood flow into the brain, no activity, about 10 seconds after the heart stops. When doctors start to do CPR, they still can't get enough blood into the brain. It remains flatlined. This is the physiology of people who are receiving CPR.
Mm-hmm. So that's pretty fast. After only 10 seconds. Davi, I'm going to mute your microphone because I keep hearing noise there. Okay, so after 10 seconds, the heart stops. You don't get any more blood into your brain. That's called flat. You guys ever watch TV shows or something like that, emergency room stuff? That's when they're looking at the monitor by the bed, and it's going up and down and up and down, and then all of a sudden it goes, and it's just a flat line. It doesn't go up and down anymore. And that's the physiology. So your physiology is what's going on inside of your body, and that's what's happening. If you've died or you're even in the process of getting CPR from somebody. So not just my study, but for 4 others, all demonstrated the same thing. People have memories and recollections, combined with anecdotal reports from all over the world, from people, combined with anecdotal reports from all over the world, from people who see things accurately and remember them. It suggests this needs to be studied in more detail. Okay, Tan? You go ahead.
Not just my study, but for others, all demonstrated the same thing. People have memories and recollections combined with anecdotal reports from all over the world, from people who see things accurately and remember them. It suggests that needs to be studied in more detail.
So a couple of words I wrote in the chat. Recollections, those are just when you recall something, you remember something. It's the same kind of thing as memories. It's something you remember. Anecdotal, that is used when people just tell stories. It's not a scientific report, it's just a personal story. So an anecdote is a personal story, something that you just observed yourself, but it's not really like a scientific study or something like that. So he's saying that people need to investigate these stories more to understand what's going on. All right, the question from Wired Magazine is, one of the first after-death accounts in your book involves Joe Tirolosi, who was resuscitated 40 minutes after his heart stopped. Can you tell me more about him? Parnia, I wasn't involved in his care when he arrived at the hospital, but I know his doctors well. We'd been working with the emergency room to make sure they knew the importance of starting to cool people down. When Tiralosi arrived, they cooled him, which helped preserve his brain cells. They found vessels blocked in his heart. That's now treatable. By doing CPR and cooling him, the doctors managed to fix him and ensure that he didn't have brain damage. Okay, Davi. Unmute your microphone and then start.
The first F-death occurs in your book involves Joe Tirolosi.
Tiralosi.
Who was Tiralosi?
Yeah.
Who was resuscitated 40 minutes after his head stopped. Can you? Oh my God! Sorry.
You see it? Can you tell me more about him?
Because my okay. Permian. I want to see when he arrived at the hospital, but I know his doctor well. We've been working with the emergency room to make sure they knew the importance of staging to cool people down. When Tirasoli arrived, they called him, which helped preserve his brain cells. They found vessels blocked here in his no treatable.
Yep, treatable.
By doing
CPR.
down.
Yeah.
By doing CPR and cooling his down, the doctors managed to fix him and ensures that he didn't have brain damage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Yeah. Okay. So.
Where are we? Can you highlight the text, please?
Yeah, it's highlighted.
It is okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So basically, this guy came in. He had a heart attack, but they cooled his body down, and then because they found that his blood vessels were blocked, they were able to treat that, so they could fix it, and then they started his heart back up, and they were able to ensure, which means to make sure that he did not have any brain damage. When Tiralosi woke up, he told nurses that he had a profound experience and wanted to talk about it. That's how we met. He told me that he felt incredibly peaceful and saw this perfect being full of love and compassion. This is not uncommon. All right. Okay, go ahead, Emanuele.
Okay. When Tirolasi woke up, he told nurses that he had a profound experience and wanted to talk about it. That's how we met. He told me that he felt incredibly peaceful and saw this perfect being full of love and compassion. This is not uncommon.
Right. So uncommon is the opposite of common. So basically he's saying that this is a common experience when people have this happen to them. They often come back with these types of stories. He says, people tend to interpret what they see based on their background. A Hindu describes a Hindu god. An atheist doesn't see a Hindu god or a Christian god, but some being. Different cultures see the same thing, but their interpretation depends on what they believe. Okay, Enrique?
Okay, people tend to interpret what they see based on their background. A Hindu describes a Hindu god, an atheist doesn't see a Hindu god or a Christian god, but some being. Different cultures see the same thing, but their interpretation depends on what they believe.
So when you interpret something, that means that's what you think it means. So if you belong to a certain type of religion, that's what you'll understand. When you come back, you'll say, I saw God or Jesus or, Hindu something. So
it can also be to interpret languages, right?
Yeah, that
interpreter is like a person who interprets another.
Yeah, right, because it's the same idea. If if you're speaking Swedish and somebody needs to understand you who speaks Spanish, then you get somebody to interpret for you, and they're translating. So yeah, so it's the same kind of thing, but in this case, you're interpreting a story, what you saw. So you're putting words to something that you saw, and you're doing it based on what you already know. So yeah. So
yeah, that's how we go about in life. We interpret things from our own experiences and beliefs. Right?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, from our perception or our perspective, we say. Yep. Yeah. Okay, so Wired asks, what can we learn from the fact that people report seeing the same thing? And he says, at the very least, it tells us that there's this unique experience that humans have when they go through death. It's universal. It's described by children as young as 3. And it tells us that we should not be afraid of death. Okay, Farhad?
Okay, so what can we learn from the fact that people report seeing the same things? At the very least, it tells us that there's this unique experience that humans have when they go through death. It's universal. It It's described by children as young as 3, and it tells us that we teacher okay should not be afraid of death.
Yeah. So basically, this is a unique experience that humans have. We don't really know that, but maybe monkeys have them, maybe animals have them. We don't know. But we know only because humans come back and they tell us. And it turns out that these stories are universal. So the word universal means everybody has a similar thing. So if something is universal, it means everybody is having the same type of experience or whatever you're calling universal. Yeah. So basically the lesson is not to be afraid of death. Do not be afraid to die. Okay, how do we know after death experiences happen when people think they do? Maybe people misremember thoughts from just before death or just after regaining consciousness. That's a very important question. Do these memories occur when a person is truly flatlined and had no brain activity, as science suggests, or when they're beginning to wake up but are still unconscious? Okay, Ron?
Wired. How do we know after death experiences happen when people think they do? Maybe people misremember thoughts from just before death or just after regaining consciousness. Parnia. That's a very important question. Do these memories occur when a person is truly flattened and had no brain activity, as science suggests, or when they are beginning to wake up but are still unconscious?
Right. So misremember would just mean that they remember something incorrectly. They're not really remembering it very well. And when you are regaining consciousness, that means when you're like waking up. So if you have a surgery, for example, and they put you under anesthesia, and then you start to wake up, that is when you start to regain consciousness. So that's a question. When do we really know what's happening here? The point that goes against the experiences happening afterwards or before the brain shut down is that many people describe very specific details of what happened to them during cardiac arrest. They describe conversations people had, clothes people wore, events that went on 10 or 20 minutes into resuscitation. That is not compatible with brain activity. Okay, Maria?
The point that goes against the experiences happening afterwards or before the brain shut down is that many people describe very specific details of what happened to them during cardiac arrest. They describe conversations people had, clothes people wore, events that went on 10 or 20 minutes into resuscitation. That is not compatible with brain activity.
Yes,
What
so
does it mean?
Okay. Well, what it means is what they're describing. They're actually describing conversations that people had, like in their room, in the doctor's room, like in their hospital room or something. They can describe the clothes that people were wearing and events that were happening, like when they're trying to be saved, 10 or 20 minutes later. So he's saying that that type of stuff is not compatible with brain activity. Like the brain is not able to do that if you're in cardiac arrest. So
they can perceive what people wear in the room?
Yep.
Kind of close, okay.
Yeah. Sometimes they tell the stories of that. Like a lot of people say like it's kind of like an out-of-body experience. So they're like hovering up above their body and they see their body and they see the people working on them and they can hear them talking. But they shouldn't be able to do that because their brain is flatlined. Like there's no electrical activity in their brain. So it doesn't make sense. Yeah. So that's why some people say this is like beyond consciousness. Like it's not a brain activity, actually. It may be that some people receive better quality resuscitation and that, though there's no evidence to support it, they did have brain activity. Or it could indicate that human consciousness, the psyche, the soul, the self, continued to function. Okay, so let's see. Mario?
Yes. It may be that some people receive better quality resuscitation and that thought there's no evidence to support it, they did have brain activity, or it could indicate that human consciousness, the psyche, the soul, the self, continued to function.
Yeah, and that's pretty much what the interesting thing is for scientists and other types of people is what is functioning after so-called death, because we think of life as breathing and your heart beating, and then we think of death as not breathing and your heart's not beating, but yet you still have some type of something going on that you remember. So what is that? Okay, Wired says, couldn't the experiences just reflect some extremely subtle type of brain activity? Parnia says, when you die, there's no blood flow going into your brain. If it goes below a certain level, you can't have electrical activity. It takes a lot of imagination to think there's somehow a hidden area of your brain that comes into action when everything else isn't working. Okay. Davi?
Couldn't these could they experience just reflect some extremely subtle type of brain activity? When you die, there is no blood flow going to enter our brain. If it goes below a certain level, you can have electrical activity. It takes a lot of imaginations to think there is somehow a rhythm area of your brain that comes into action when everything else isn't working.
Yeah. So basically he's saying no, not really. That's not going to happen. If your brain is shutting down, there's not some special area that all of a sudden comes to life. These observations raise a question about our current concept of how brain and mind interact. The historical idea is that electrical chemical processes in the brain lead to consciousness. That may no longer be correct, because we can demonstrate that those processes don't go on after death. Okay, Enrique?
Okay, this observation raises a question about our current concept of how brain and mind interact. The historical idea is that the electrochemical process in the brain led to consciousness. That may no longer be correct because we can demonstrate that those processes don't go on after death.
Right. So we're just still trying to understand how the brain works. There may be something in the brain we haven't discovered that accounts for consciousness, or it may be that consciousness is a separate entity from the brain. Okay, go ahead, Farhad. Farhad?
Okay, sorry, teacher. Okay, there may be something in the brain we haven't discovered that accounts for consciousness, or it may be that consciousness is a separate entity for the brain.
Okay, yeah. So while this seems to verge on supernatural explanations of consciousness, Parnia says, throughout history we try to explain things the best we can with the tools of science, but most open-minded and objective scientists recognize that we have limitations. Just because something is inexplicable with our current science doesn't make it superstitious or wrong. When people discovered electromagnetism, forces that couldn't then be seen or measured, a lot of scientists made fun of it. Okay, Aaron?
Wired. This seems to verge on supernatural explanations of consciousness, Parnia. Throughout this history, we try to explain things the best we can with the tools of science, the most open-minded and objective. Scientists recognize that we have limitations. Just because something is inexplicable with our current science doesn't make it superstitious or wrong. When people discovered electromagnetism, forces that couldn't be seen or measured, a lot of scientists made fun of it.
Yeah, right. Superstitious is like an old, like a wives' tale or something when you believe something. Like, for example, superstitious, if in America we say, like, you shouldn't open an umbrella in the house because something bad will happen to you. That's a superstition.
You should not walk under a ladder.
Exactly, yeah, that's another one. Okay, scientists have, or Maria, why don't you just read that for us here?
Okay, good. Scientists have come to believe that the self is brain cell processes. But there's never been an experiment to show how cells in the brain could possibly lead to human thought. If you look at the brain cell under a microscope and I tell you, this brain cell thinks I'm hungry, that's impossible.
Mm-hmm. Okay, go ahead and keep reading that one right there.
Okay, it could be that, like electromagnetism, the human psyche and consciousness are very subtle type of force that interacts with the brain, but are not necessarily produced by the brain. The jury is still out.
Okay, and Mario, why don't you read this part here? Mario?
The Wire?
Yeah.
Okay, but what about all the fMRI brain imaging studies of thoughts and feelings, or experiments in which scientists can tell what someone is seeing or what they're dreaming by looking at brain activity? All the evidence we have shows an association between certain parts of the brain and certain mental processes. But it is a chicken and egg question. Does cellular activity produce the mind, or does the mind produce cellular activity?
Right, that's the main question. Okay, I'll just finish up. Some people have tried to conclude that what we observe indicates that cells produce thought. Here's a picture of depression, here's a picture of happiness. But this is simply an association, not a causation. If you accept that theory, there should be no reports of people hearing or seeing things after activity in their brain has stopped. If people can have consciousness, maybe that raises the possibility that our theories are premature. That means we're getting on them too early. Well, what comes next in your own research? In terms of resuscitation, we're trying to non-invasively measure what happens in real time using a special sensor that allows us to detect any impending danger and intervene before extensive damage is done. On the question of consciousness, I'm interested in understanding the brain-based modulators of consciousness. What helps a person become conscious or unconscious? How can we manipulate that to help people who look like they're unconscious? And I'm studying how consciousness can be present in people who've gone beyond the threshold of death. All we can say now is that the data suggests that consciousness is not annihilated. That means consciousness lives even after death. Okay. All right, we finished it. We're a little bit late. If you have to go, that's fine. Otherwise, anybody have any questions? Mario, you wanted to ask something?
Yeah. I wanted to ask. You've got the word "can," and in negative, I know there's a difference between British and American English, but how you pronounce the word? You pronounce "can't" or "can't" in American.
Which word?
Can't.
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 Right?
Okay, can't is a British. Can't. Yeah. I can't.
I can't do that today.
I can't.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Okay, all right, everybody. Thanks for reading. It's pretty interesting. So the jury is still out. That means we don't really know what happens. So it's still a mystery. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank
Very
you,
interesting.
Lisa. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Bye, Maria. Bye, Don.